Fantastic. All right. Hello, everyone. I'm Victor. I'm Vice President of the Space Industry Club here at MIT Sloan. It's my pleasure to present our Earth observation panel today. The companies on these panels are pushing the future of Earth observation in novel directions and changing how we observe and understand our world. With that, I'd like to introduce our panelists. We have Lydia Zhang, Business Development Spanish Specialist at Planet Labs. Stephane Germane, CEO at GHGSat. Anushka Prasad, Business Operations and Strategy at Capella Space. Peter Wegner, CTO at Blacksky. And Aravind Ravichandran, founder of TerraWatch Space. Let's give a warm welcome to our panelists.
Brilliant. Good morning, everyone. So I hope you can hear me all right. Right, so let's start with a quick round of introductions, and then we'll get to questions, and then I want to leave 5-10 minutes, even more if you want, for audience questions, because we have questions prepared, but I think you probably will have more interesting questions. So I'll start. So my name is Aravind. I'm the founder of TerraWatch Space, which is an advisory firm focused on Earth observation. I also have a newsletter and a podcast, also focused on Earth observation. So I think and write and talk all about Earth observation most of my time, as my socks says today. We'll get some intros from the panelists. So maybe start from the end. Lydia, you want to go first?
Sure. Mic check. Hi, everyone. I'm Lydia. I'm the Business Development Specialist at Planet. Additionally, I'm also a data scientist, a surfer, and a proud MIT alumna from Technology Policy Program in AirAstral. So a bit about Planet. Planet is a leading Earth observation company. We have over 200 satellites in space taking picture of the world every day. Essentially, you can think of we take a selfie of the world every day, and we try to pass on that selfie to different industries for their use cases.
Great. And I'm Stephane Germane. I'm the CEO at a company called GHGSat. So at GHGSat, we use our own satellites to monitor greenhouse gas emissions at a facility level, so for individual facilities around the world. So we look for methane emissions from oil wells, like right down to individual wells, individual tanks. We look for methane emissions from landfills, from coal mines, from pretty much any industrial source of emissions. And we also are going to be doing that for carbon dioxide shortly. We started with methane, but basically we want to target the two primary greenhouse gases. And then we sell that data to industrial operators, so the people who are responsible for the emissions in the first place, and then to governments, so that they can better understand what's going on in their own jurisdictions, and then finally to financial services communities as well. So it's quite an adventure. We've got 6 satellites in space right now. We've got another 3 launching in about 2 weeks, and we're going to have another 3 again by the end of the year. So with that, providing global coverage of pretty much every industry in the world.
Hi, everyone. My name is Anushka, and I'm Business Operations and Strategy at Capella Space. I'm a relative newbie to space, so for all the people trying to enter space, take it from me, it's super exciting. I'm also a venture partner at Syndicate 708, and we invest in deep tech and a lot of space and defense technology at very early stage. Capella, SAR satellite company, the only American, well, not the only, but the leading American SAR company. We continuous observation of the Earth 24/7, day or night, through the clouds, and so something that we need and we need more of. And so, yeah, here representing Capella.
Hi, good morning, everyone. I'm Peter Wegner, the CTO at Blacksky. It's great to be at MIT. It's been several years since I've been here, so nice to be back. Thanks for having me. Blacksky is a global intelligence company. The way we provide this intelligence to our customers is by first starting to mine the world for open source information. Think of things like news media and social media, maybe IoT data coming off of tracking devices, other things. And then integrate that into a real-time view of the planet from our satellite constellation. We fly a constellation that provides an image anywhere on the planet every hour, and in high resolution, and we stack all of this intelligence together using artificial intelligence and machine learning algorithms that allow our customers to really focus down and understand the changes at the points in the Earth that matter most to them. So that's Blacksky.
Brilliant. Thanks, everyone, for the intros. And I'm very excited about the panel. I know you heard the intros. For those who are not in the industry, it's great to have this set of companies together represented because they all do very different things to monitor the Earth. And all of their data sets have applications that span across different industries. So yeah, excited to hear from them. Let's start with a very basic question so that, for those who are not aware of Earth observation can kind of see the potential of what the industry is. The first question is really, what is the most promising use case of Earth observation do you see today? Maybe Peter, you want to get started?
Oh, sure. I mean, maybe just a little bit of a history lesson. Where's Earth observation gone? Initially, it was just really about mapping, creating high-resolution maps of the planet, which was really valuable, still very valuable. Then mapping really moved to real-time location intelligence, and you can think about things like Google Maps and how much we all rely on real-time information and mapping devices. But over time, it's moving more and more to real-time intelligence, understanding what is happening right now, and understanding that in multiple ways. And I think about it just like I think about the human body. We have all these different senses, our eyes, our ears, our nose, our taste. And we want to understand the planet in the same way. And so all these different phenomenologies that we talked about, even represented up here on the panel, give us a little bit different view of what's happening in a place that we might care deeply about. And I think that's the future opportunity in Earth observation.
Brilliant. Anushka, what about your side?
Yeah, no, to add to that, I think what's really exciting is also sort of the predictive capabilities, right? So, you were just talking about Blacksky's AI. The more we capture data from our Earth, the more we understand what's happening today, the better we can predict what's going to happen tomorrow. And that sort of goes into, let's say more specific things like pricing insurance properly. And so when you price risk properly, then people will invest appropriately in, let's say if they're not going to build their homes in the North Carolina, on the beaches or things like that. And so I think our decision making gets more precise and is better. And I think that's the most exciting thing is our eventual predictive capabilities.
And Stephane, I think you have an easy job because your company's name kind of says the use case, but maybe you want to talk about where you see that data being used today.
Well, actually, that's too easy. So I'm going to give a different answer, which is, I don't know. Because I think that we're dealing with an ecosystem of data coming from, whether it's radar, visual, whatever, that we're all $100 million, $10 million range companies. None of us are billion-dollar companies. And so I think the real EO applications have yet to come, and that's probably what's most exciting for most people in the audience here. You guys can actually shape what the real EO opportunity is with this crush of data coming from all these different sensors. I think we don't know yet what the killer app is or the series of killer apps are from EO.
100%.
Yeah.
Lydia, do you agree?
I think the panel covers a lot, and I would only say we know some and we don't know a lot about the others. At Planet, we have 3 satellites constellation. 2 of them are visual-based, so they are the eyes that were referred to, that we take picture of the world and people can already see insights from that. But we also have an upcoming hyperspectral satellites that's actually cover an area we can see with our whole human eyes. And that opens up a lot of new use cases like greenhouse gas measurement, methane, carbon, and a lot more that we don't know. So yeah, we know some and we're still learning.
Brilliant. So, it's really an area with a lot of potential. I want to, go to the infrastructure side of things, which is the hardware side. Maybe some people here are very excited about the hardware and the satellites. When you started your company, obviously all of the companies here have different stories, but does every Earth observation company today need to build satellites, or has the space industry kind of reached a point where you don't need to vertically integrate? And I want to ask Stephane to start with, because I'm guessing you don't build your own satellites, meaning you're not vertically integrated, correct?
That's absolutely right.
How did you come to that decision, and have you reached a point where any company, anyone can go and start a space company and launch satellites to collect more data if you want?
It's pretty simple. Capital's scarce. There's a lot of people out there who can do really cool things with satellites and instruments. We build, nanometer scale optics, and rather than do that ourselves, build the clean rooms and the labs to do that. There are very capable companies around the world that can do it, and very importantly, more than one. So we can compete them to design, or actually not to design, we own all the IP for our sensors. We get other people to build to print effectively what we've designed, and then build partnerships around that. So that's on the sensor side. The bus side, the satellite side, is even more prolific. There's bus suppliers all over the place. Now, there's better ones and worse ones, and some with more pedigree than others, of course. But why would we want to, again, build all our own facilities to do that when we can go to multiple different places in the world that can do that for us? Same thing for ground stations. Why would we own our ground stations when we can get it from Amazon or KSAT or others that do it right now with very reliable services? So we outsource pretty much everything except for our core IP and all our data processing. So everything comes encrypted back down to us, we process it, and then we do all the value added downstream from there. But even there, we outsource some of the analytics based on our data.
Yeah, interesting. And Anushka, you have a different approach to it, correct? And can you explain like your rationale and how how you're doing things today, and do you see things doing the same forward as well?
Yeah, sure. So Capella is almost completely vertically integrated. So we design, manufacture, obviously don't launch, and then operate our satellites. And I think there's a couple of key differences, right? Firstly, SAR sensors are fairly hard to build. And so the design the design and manufacturing of that definitely has to be in-house. The second thing is, I definitely completely agree, Stephane. Capital that's the name of the game across industries. Capital is scarce. But the thing is that we are not manufacturing mass scale satellites, right? We're manufacturing 10. And so the cost benefit of outsourcing parts of it is not necessarily, you're not going to see big value coming from that unless you sort of really scale manufacturing, and we're not there yet. The other thing is that a lot of, and this I think is true across the space industry, and obviously somebody correct me if I'm wrong, but we're doing R&D and production on the same lines. We're doing R&D, we're producing the thing that we're R&Ding, and then we're sending that thing up to space. And so you need a lot of flexibility in your process, in your manufacturing process, if you're going to do it that way. And so we're vertically integrated today because it makes the most sense of where we are as a company. I think as the industry matures, as we stop doing continuous R&D and maybe do sort of more phased R&D, et cetera, we might start to see less vertical integration and maybe more cost efficiency in that sense. So at this point, it doesn't make sense.
Fair enough. Yeah, interesting perspectives as you see in the industry. I want to take it like one more step further, which is vertical integration from producing the satellites to down producing the analytics, because obviously there's the generation of the data, and then there's deriving analytics from the data that you're producing. Blacksky and Planet do that today in different capacities. So, Peter, do you want to talk about how you see that today, but also how you see that moving forward? Can one company produce the data but also produce analytics?
Well, they can, absolutely, yes. I mean, we do. You may ask if that's the right decision. I think from a Blacksky perspective, access to our own data is maybe a really critical piece to drive analytics at the speed you want them to go. I'm trying to think of a good use case. We take several thousand images a day across the world, and we're using machine vision algorithms to pull out of that imagery critical objects that our customers may care about. If it's a defense and intelligence customer, we're pulling out every aircraft in the scene and typing it and saying, these are commercial aircraft and these are military aircraft, and here's the patterns of life of when they're coming and going. But that airport in July looks very different than that airport may look in December. And training those algorithms continuously to understand what is changing, how you update the algorithms, it's really fundamental for us to be able to deliver the kind of accuracy and keep up with the changes that are happening. So from my perspective, it's not just I think it's a critical advantage to algorithm development to have access to your own data sets. Our image analysts are constantly tasking our satellites to create new imagery to feed into the models. So when those satellites are and they feed into each other, it's a positive flywheel effect.
I want to add something here, actually, really. as we see AI models sort of become more ubiquitous, right, it's the proprietary data that is king. And so I think if you are a data provider, it used to be we used to worry about data getting commoditized, but I think we are now thinking, okay, well, we have the data, models are going to be coming, it might be worth owning it to really get that value add, especially as you enter the commercial market. Sorry, Lydia.
No, that's good. Yeah, I love the add-on because at Planet, we have both of the models. We have a lot of customers, a lot of partners that do post-analysis on our data and use their expertise in the different specific industry and translate our data into the insights that's really relevant. So for example, in agriculture, and also in like some cases, novel or bespoke industry like agriculture, we also have we're really glad to see our data goes into other applications API. For example, we have a partner called Leaf. They are a data agriculture infrastructure company. And our data flows smoothly into their API for developers to then develop applications based on their platform. So we're seeing a lot of that. But to the same point, we are also seeing a lot of customers come to us and say, imagery is cool, but we can't make use of it. So from a customer-centric perspective, we're also very excited about in-house analytics capacity. So starting last year, we launched a new series of products called Planetary Variables. Those are soil moisture data, biomass proxy, surface temperature. So a lot of that is agriculture sustainability use cases where we know our customers want us to take a step in and help them make sense of the data. And even coming up, we have forest carbon. So a lot of those is the new market demand that we're hearing and wanted to really help customers to realize this insights because otherwise the imageries are just pretty imageries. Yeah.
Yeah, interesting thoughts there. I want to kind of zoom out a little bit, and I want to ask a question about the state of the industry today. As my job, I kind of track everything that's going on in the industry, and I have a list of all the Earth observation companies out there, and I also publish a report every year on how many companies exist and where they are in the value chain. And the question to you, I think anybody can choose to answer, is can the industry really sustain with as many companies as we have today? You can take different perspectives to your answer, financial, strategic, space situational awareness and space environment. A lot of lenses there, but I want to have this as an open question to see who wants to go. Can we sustain as many companies as we have in Earth observation? I mean, to give the audience an idea, I think I'm tracking about 112 recently. Not all of them have launch satellites. All of them have different sensors, different capabilities, and all of them show a lot of promise, but can the industry sustain as many industries?
I thought there was like 112 launch companies alone.
So it's also becoming the case in Earth observation, really.
Yeah, okay, but so I don't think there's enough by any stretch of the imagination. I mean, this is a huge potential industry that's really just in its infancy. And if we look at this really as, for the title here, new space, right, I think that there's 100 is just a drop in the bucket. There's got to be way more built around pretty much every aspect of space. I think there'll be a lot more on the downstream, on the analytics, and the value add that can be done to translate the imagery into something useful for customers. There's an awful lot of that needs to happen for sure. But I still think, I hope to God there's going to be more than just us. Well, there will be soon, offering greenhouse gas emissions from satellites, right? There should be at least a dozen of us competing. And similarly, I think there should be lots of radar satellites. There should be lots of intelligence imagery satellites. There should be a lot more than there is right now.
I have a slightly different perspective. No, and I think the what you said is yes, there should be, but can there be, right? Can the industry sustain? Can the market sustain? And I think again, you said it before, capital is scarce, and we are in an industry that is really capex heavy, and you only generate revenue if you're manufacturing your own and designing your own, maybe 3 to 4 years out. After you make the capital investment, that is a tough business. And as money gets more expensive and it gets riskier, people don't want to, it's harder to put money into something like that. So, and I think the Earth observation market is 4.7 billion or something like that, according to Euroconsult. I definitely feel like there's room for consolidation in that I think that products become better. The end product becomes better when you have multi-sensor, right? When you mix EO with SAR with RF, you're getting better products. And if you could start to have companies that are doing, if we start to consolidate companies and pull those together, you can have stronger sort of, sorry, this is getting a little bit too businessy, but we are at Sloan. But you can just have sort of higher efficiencies, right? Sure. Costs go down. You're creating a better product. It's better for customers. You start to become the one place that they go for their data needs. And so, yeah, I think that's what's in our future, at least for the next few years, until interest rates go back down.
Yeah, 100%. I mean, it's it's no different, right? We've had that. We've seen that happen in software. We kind of have a duopoly, kind of three companies in the cloud world, in search engines, and that's been the state of the world. Maybe that's kind of what will happen in Earth observation. We'll see.
And they're trillion-dollar companies. I think we got a way to go.
Yeah,
we got a way to go. But
I would just maybe if I could just add one comment to that. I think when you look at the size of the world economy, and many people estimate that most businesses will spend 1% to 2% of their total revenue on intelligence, on market intelligence. And I think we're just starting. I don't even know if we're just at the beginning of that yet. I think the defense and intelligence communities know what to do with Earth observation data. I don't think most companies know what to do with it yet. And so I think we're at the very beginning of that, and that's really the market promise that's out there. And if that promise really does play out over the next couple decades, I think Stephane's right. It's not 100 companies, it's 1,000 that are doing this kind of global intelligence.
Sure. But to have some sort of a reality check, right? So in terms of the market today, the majority of the market of Earth observation is owned by defense. And first of all, do you see that the commercial market, which is non-defense, overtake the defense at some point? When do you see that happen? And what needs to happen in order to enable that? Maybe Lydia, you want to start?
Yeah, sure. Totally. I think the reality, it's the space industry, it's still very much government influence. And a lot of the customers, the first customers come from government. From Planet's perspective, we have been really lucky and privileged to kind of serve non-government customers from early stage. I think to answer this question, there's two elements from Planet's perspective. One is our data, it's our observation data, optical, and we know there's public sponsored satellites out there that's free. And so it's a very interesting market for us to first navigate through. How do we compete with government-sponsored free satellite data? So on that note, we're excited to see many of customers use this in tandem, of our Planet data to the government data. So kind of to your point, Peter, or like the solution idea we're talking about, how do you use multiple satellites for your own solution? And we've been exploring that, and we're really excited to see our customers been exploring that for using Sentinel first for first insight, and then using planets for higher spatial or cadence resolution that they want. So the second point is about exploring non-government market. Similar to Swan here about GHGSat, we're all entering into a completely new market. It was a new demand a couple years ago. So a lot of the policy kind of incentivized this market about mission emissions, methane emissions, or carbon emission tracking. And a lot of the customers will come out of government. Of course, policymakers, regulator will still be a key target, but we want to talk to finance, we want to talk to energy, we want to talk to agriculture, and those have been work undergone, and we're seeing a great proportion of that kind of customers coming in. We just need to translate our work from space to non-space to them properly there.
Anyone else want to add, Stephane?
Sure, I'll dive in. So in the space business, a lot of people like to use a tired analogy to GPS. And I still think EO's GPS moment is yet to come. The GPS, military GPS, is a fraction of the global use of the commercial GPS market, or commercial derived GPS market. The same thing's going to happen to EO, right? And hopefully people in this room are going to come up with some of the ideas to turn that market into that large commercial market. I think commercial will be huge compared to EO, government EO.
Brilliant. We have around 15 minutes to go, and I have a couple more questions, but we want to get questions from the audience in 5 minutes' time. So just get your questions ready. The last question, it's not the last one, the one before the last is, what are we not talking about enough in our industry, or what is the most important challenge? It's another way to put it. What do you think that is? What should we be talking about more in the industry, or what should the audience be thinking about and should know about the industry? Who wants to go? think all of them can chip in.
I'll
Yeah.
follow.
Go ahead, you go first.
Oh, okay, sure. I really like this question. My last life was a space policy student at technology policy. So I spent a lot of time thinking about the industry-wide problems or challenges or policy problems. So one of that is space debris. It kind of goes related to how this market is getting crowded and we have more satellites coming in at a much faster speed than before. So along with that, we know space is big. We know LEO, it's still large enough, but how do we start thinking about from an industry perspective on self-regulate, or how do we help policymakers thinking about at this new speed, how to work with us? So that I know there's great works undergoing from both academia, from policymakers, but I do feel like industry level wise, there could be a potential to talk more among ourselves. How do we do that? Whether it's by deorbit automatically, or whether it's that kind of policy industry agreement. Mm-hmm. Yeah.
So I totally agree. Debris is an issue that we all need to face, but let me go to a different one, which is, for lack of a better way of saying it, how do we make our data free? And in my world, that's really, really important because a lot of people are arguing that greenhouse gas emissions, data about that should be a public good. It shouldn't be something you have to pay for. On the other hand, this data wouldn't exist right now if I hadn't started GHGSat as a private company, right? So how do you square that circle? And I really think the industry as a whole will really flourish when we find a way to crack that code. There's got to be a way to make more data freely available to more people, not just from the government-owned satellites like in Europe, but also from our private satellites.
100%. I think that's a very important point. And, to have a parallel, weather is kind of an example for that public good. And because it didn't start in the time where there was new space, it was still old space, and it's still owned by government agencies. But then with emissions, I think we need new approaches, new models, new public-private partnerships perhaps to think about it. Anushka, Peter, do you want to add something before we move to the last question? About what should we be talking about more?
I don't know. My mind is on just a few things lately. I feel like I'm harping on the same topic. A number of companies SPAC'd, Blacksky included. I think we really, really need to be thinking about how to, and again, I apologize. I'm not trying to be the cost person here. But it's capital, it's tough, right? The SVB thing also has really scared people. People, like companies like Capella, et cetera, that are going to need to raise money to continue building our constellations. It's just getting tighter, and it's not always because these are not good businesses or not viable businesses. And so let me phrase it this way. What I'm really excited about is more things like relativity, things that will bring launch costs down. I know that their current launch didn't go completely as planned, but everything that brings the infrastructure to get companies like us to space, the lower those costs get, the better the infrastructure gets, the more viable we become, right? And so that's what I'm super excited about.
Yeah, 100%.
One way to see.
Yeah. Oh, now that you say you launched satellites recently, so just want to say congrats on the launch yesterday. And Blacksky is about to launch soon, I suppose. So do you have anything to add, Peter, before we move to the last question?
The one thing I spend a lot of time right now thinking about is that every company I know is trying to hire. And probably show of hands on the panel. Are you trying to hire anybody right now? And it's only going to get worse. We're going to face a demographic collapse in most of the first world economies in the next decade. Look around at South Korea, Japan, China. Those populations are aging rapidly. The number of emerging workers is going down. And so I worry a lot about, even in my own company, how are we going to continue to produce really complex technical systems with half the workforce? And I don't know how to do it. And I spend a lot of time thinking about that. And I think not just my company, every company in the United States is going to have to face that issue. Every company in the first world economy is going to have to face that.
Yep, 100%. Cool. Last question. Let's say 30 seconds each. What are you most looking forward to from your company's perspective? Is there anything coming up, milestone, anything that you want to highlight before we ask the audience for questions? Anything you want to?
Launch is always great, getting satellites on orbit. Knock on wood.
Anything, Stephane?
All right, I'll come at it a little differently. I'm looking forward to every single thing you buy as individuals, everything any company buys every day, having not just a dollar cost associated to it, but a carbon cost associated with it.
Yeah, 100%, and enabled by hopefully your data set.
Oh, maybe, yeah.
For our data sets. Yeah. No, it's the same thing actually, like sustainability. We're seeing sustainability transformation. We hear about it for a couple of years. How can we really translate that and use GIS data, not just satellite data, GIS data broadly as a technical solution in that? It's something I'm personally very fascinated and excited to work on.
Brilliant. Let's get to audience question, unless you have something to add, Anushka.
Oh, sorry. No. Oh, what am I excited about? We just had a launch yesterday, so that was super exciting, and we have a couple more this year, so very excited for those two. Yeah, that's what I'll say. Yeah.
Brilliant. Let's get to audience. We have, I think, almost 10 minutes. Okay, that's a lot of questions. Anyone has the microphone? Oh, it's here. One in the first row here. I don't want to be the one picking, so I don't want to create enemies, so go for it.
Yeah, this is a combined question on CapEx and the additional kind of data products. Going from imagery to maybe radiometrically calibrated to provide data products, is there a capital raise required for that, or are your instruments already capable of generating products as is? And I'll say that, a lot of radiometrically calibrated missions have to have continuous verification, validation, and cross-calibration. So just give us a sense of how far you are from providing the additional capabilities.
I can give a quick answer, and maybe someone else can follow up too. So at Planet, we know our product our customers' demands are always higher, so we're always improving on that, including calibration. And oftentimes we hear the demands for calibration coming more from scientific community. And for us, that's a big customer group, and a customer group we really care about and we want to do things for. But at the same time, as a private company, we had to balance out between the best data quality versus the good enough. So for us, it's always a trade-off and figuring out where they are, where calibration capacity, the cost of it, and kind of balance out with us. But we're always improving on that.
And the next one. I think someone has a microphone.
Yes, this is Marcus Harvey. Following on to Peter's response there, what do you think about the workforce? What do you need to do to try to enable that workforce to be available for these companies in the future?
Well, I don't think you can do much to create more workforce except have more babies. So I think we have to figure out how to work smarter. How do you design and deliver and operate really complex things with a smaller team? Technology is a part of that. We're seeing a lot of emerging, 3D printing and all these technologies, I think merging together are going to help us solve that problem.
Just a follow-on, what I meant by that was for the pipeline. How do we diversify? How do we enable the pipeline to get better?
Yeah, sure. I mean, we certainly want to reach out. There's, maybe MIT is the place that can start this and reaching out to just educate young people about the excitement of working in space and how to pursue those kind of careers and make sure that we're grooming those people all the way through. I see a lot of statistics about how many kids start out very young in school and want to work on space, and then as they go through, they start falling off, and maybe as math gets hard or some of those things. So I think all of those programs are critically important, and maybe all of us in this room should be doing more to spend time at your local elementary school. Almost every school is begging for volunteers to come in and talk to students, and maybe that's something we can all do.
If I can share an anecdote just to add that. 2017, I was an undergrad student interviewing a bunch of European space entrepreneurs, and the main question they said to me that time was, we're all a bunch of rocket scientists. we need business people. We need policymakers in our companies as new space economy. So that comment actually prompted me to go into this industry, not from a technical perspective, but more from a policy or interdisciplinary perspective. So I guess the answer, it's that, but also it's now. We're hosting this event at Sloan. We're at MIT. It's not just space or aeroastro department that's relevant. It's technology policy department. It's CSAIL, the computer science department, because we're seeing a lot of AI and ML modeling come in. It's all about you. It's all of your specific skill sets that's relevant to space. The thing we need to do is to say space is not that special. It's actually open and applicable to any backgrounds, and we need that. Yeah.
So I saw a very interesting talk yesterday about using reconnaissance for investigating social justice. And it got me thinking that these images can, have different applications, like they can be used for that, also potentially for law enforcement. So, we get some ethical issues coming up there. So I'm wondering if there's any, regulation of that, or what's the thinking in that area, how these images will be used for good or bad?
That's a good question. Yeah, it should be part of, the humanities department in universities, which is not part of today. But do you have any thoughts?
It's a really tough one, and I think at least at Capella we think about this a lot because we're in Ukraine, as many of our friends are as well, and like I think you think about how do you as a company, you're building satellites, how do you know what's right or wrong, or if you're supporting the right actor or not? And it's a really, really tough line to like, if you're doing imaging in, let's say, Colombia of like agriculture fields, and you're providing that data to the government. Okay, well, what does that really mean? What are the implications of that? And so I think, I don't know, and I think this is a debate we need to keep having within organizations, outside of organizations. Regulators help, because sometimes they can make it easier by just saying like, hey, certain actors you can't work with, and that makes it easier because you now know that these actors are not good actors. But I think debate and discussion is probably the only way to push our thinking forward and what the lines are. Yeah, but it's a tough one.
Yeah, maybe I could just add to that. I spend maybe a quarter of my time as a CEO, a relatively small company, but still tackling exactly how our data can be made available to different groups. It's a huge challenge, and I'm recruiting advisors from all kinds of different backgrounds to help me with that. And I think it's only going to get more complicated as we get more data.
I would just comment that for me, it's one of the reasons I'm actually in this business, because I believe that evil cannot hide in plain sight. And so the more that we can expose things that are going on in the world, we can all be a very powerful force for good. And I think Earth observation satellites have a unique ability to do that. And so I think it's actually very important. I think it's very fundamental. I think it's, in many ways, how you support freedom and democracy and important principles around the world.
Brilliant. You have someone on the microphone, yeah.
Hi. I'm curious, what are the most interesting emerging planetary applications for sensor technology that you guys have been aware of recently?
Do you mean the analytics side, or do you mean the sensor side? Gotcha. I can talk a little bit, and I know yours is also very exciting. We have a hyperspectra constellations coming up, and that allows us to see beyond the optical light all the way to sphere. And with that, we can look into the chemical composition of things. You can think of it as telescope that's not pointing out to outer space, but looking back on Earth. So you can, similar to astronomers doing study about other planets, this is about our own planet. So there's a lot more interesting use case or customers or market that we are trying to figure out. Yeah, that's very exciting.
And I guess I'll just add on to that, which is, so we invented a new class of sensors that can detect gases down to a very high resolution in the atmosphere. And that now gives a whole new light on, excuse me, on, well, in our case, greenhouse gas emissions. But it can be other trace gases as well. It could be air quality. It can be particulate matter. It could be things that affect human life on a day-to-day basis. And that's a brand new area of technology that so we pioneered, but others are following with hyperspectral sensors tuned to specific areas. So I think that's a really exciting new area of sensors in Earth observation.
I just think that, my vision of the future for Earth observation is that we're going to have literally thousands of satellites collecting the entire electromagnetic spectrum coming off the surface of the Earth, from RF all the way into the long wave, and feeding that data in real time into big data machines that can help us really understand what is happening on the planet, what is in real time. And we're nowhere near that today. So all of those different spectrums are yet to be mined. And so that'd be my view of the future of sensing.
Brilliant. Do we have time for one question? That's it? OK. Sorry, I think you can catch them and catch us all after, during the lunch break. But thanks to the panelists for the interesting discussion, and hope you enjoyed it. Thank you.